Hello everybody, welcome back to the Sales On Demand Show. I'm your host Adam Schneider and this is episode 98. Today we're going to be talking about 3 important personality characteristics of an entrepreneur. And man, it's exciting being just 2 episodes away from my 100th episode. Oh man, that's kind of cool. So, funny story. I've been trying to upgrade my computer, so I thought to myself, I'm just going to go buy a new motherboard and a new processor and maybe some RAM, and I'll put it in my computer. And then I thought, well, I'll give my daughter the old parts because they're still good, they're still pretty fast, and she has kind of an old crappy computer. And I was like, okay, well. So I went and spent, a fair bit of money on it and brought it back. And I realized this isn't going to fit in this computer. So I need a brand new case. And I thought, well, while I'm at it, I might as well get a new monitor as well. So long story short, I am completely rebuilding my computer. And that was not something that I expected to do this month. And It went a little over budget, but, it is a business expense. You need computers, and basically everything that I do revolves around computers, so having good quality components is kind of important, I guess. But it's just funny how one thing turns into another. It's kind of like when you're doing some renovations in your house, and you're like, okay, well, I'm going to get some drywall, and then you realize you need this tool and that tool, and you didn't buy enough of this, and nothing ever goes into the budget that it's originally meant to go in. So that's fun. Well, what is selling right now? I thought I would do a little bit of something different. Rather than telling you what to sell at a particular time of year, I thought I would help you out with some ideas in various targets or niches that I guess you could call them. And this one, I'm going to call this Family Milestones. So I did this with some of my coaching students the other day, and they gave me some brilliant ideas, things that I just never would have thought of. And I thought, this is awesome. I'm going to share this with you guys here. So Family Milestones are events that happen in the lives of people but are not personal achievements, which is a different type of niche to sell in. So family milestones are things like birthdays, anniversaries, but they also include things like, let's say, your host mom birthday. Now, this was suggested to me by one of the students. If you are, like a student being hosted in someone's home, and your host mom has a birthday, apparently that is a niche that people will buy products for. There's also, of course, LGBT coming out, stuff like that. I mean, it's controversial for some people who are more conservative, but listen, these people have money and they are willing to spend their money. So serve the market, not yourself. And then, of course, best friends, commemorating when you met, when you became best friends, some event that you went on. Things like that are excellent products, and they are very, very evergreen. So if you make a good design and it starts to make some sales, there's a good chance that it'll just be one of those things that sells over and over for you all year long. So don't forget, you can get a free video and weekly tips, of course, when you join my email list. Plus, I put in information that I don't include in the weekly podcast. And I've got a bonus coming up for my 100th show. I'm going to be offering some bonuses and probably a discount. It's not going to be as steep a discount as I'd offered before. We'll probably never see a discount like that again. But listen, I'm giving more and more value as I go with this training. So you're getting more out of it instead of paying less for it. That's my goal, is to just keep adding more and more and more value to this. So I'll probably be including probably something along the lines of 2 hours of individual coaching and maybe even a group coaching session with the upcoming bonus, I have to think about that and decide. But I just want to pile on the bonuses because I think there's a lot of people out there. One thing that has really been very popular is one-on-one coaching. It is hugely popular. I have people begging me to do it. I'm charging a lot of money to people who just do individual one-on-one coaching. But if you buy the training, you get a half an hour of that included for free. And coming up here, I'm thinking about including even more one-on-one training time because it helps people a lot with technical issues. You can do lots of great things with one-on-one coaching that you just can't do any other way. So get on that email list. That's salesondemandshow.com/start. Jump on there and you'll get on my email list. All right, so what did we talk about last week? I was talking about, things that you should do if you're just getting started with your business. I was talking about, so I went through A to F. I'll just recap that for you. So be excited. Start with small goals that are not revenue-based. Don't quit your job if it's profitable, and don't quit other projects if they're profitable. Build up your inventory. Then you build up a team, and then you scale up from there. So that was last week's show, episode 97. You can find that salesondemandshow.com/E97. So here's a preamble that I'm going to filter my audience a bit because I know I have a lot of people that listen to this show. And the question that I want to ask you guys is everybody, is the whole world cut out to be an entrepreneur? Is everybody that is born, that is alive today, are we all cut out to be entrepreneurs, or is there some kind of, personality traits that are just really important for entrepreneurship? So the answer, I think, is everybody cut out to be an entrepreneur is no. I mean, very clearly, the answer is no. Now, I'm going to talk about 3 traits of entrepreneurship, and you can basically look at yourself and say to yourself, is this me? How can I build this in myself? So we're going to start with the third most important thing. And of course, I'm not going to say that if you don't have, a strong bent for this, that you're definitely not an entrepreneur, but you can learn and improve these traits in yourself. But I mean, generally speaking, if you don't have these, you probably won't even want to become an entrepreneur because they are fairly unique things that entrepreneurs experience. And you'll see that as we go through here. So, of course, I'm starting from number 3, and I'm going to go to number 1. Number 1 will be the most important trait, but I'll start with the sort of least important but still important trait. So, and that is adventurousness and risk-taking. Now, you might be thinking to yourself, this sounds like it should be the number 1 trait. It is not the number 1 trait. It is the number 3 trait. So even if you're not particularly if you're a little bit more risk-averse, you can still be a pretty good entrepreneur. It just means that you're not necessarily going to scale up as fast. But building a strong business requires somebody who has a little bit of adventure, has a little bit of the risk-taking bug in them, because building a business it's actually pretty risky. Now, of course, I mean, you're not building a physical business, so the risks are not as high, obviously. I mean, starting a restaurant would be probably the most risky thing I can think of, particularly after the COVID, all these lockdowns happen. I mean, you just never know what's going to happen. You have very little control over the market, and you've got to work very hard. You've got to be good at team building. So, I mean, you don't need all of those traits to be a work-from-home entrepreneur, but you do need a little bit of adventurousness in you, the desire to do just something a little bit different. Curiosity is kind of important. Longing for something more in your life. And I know that many of you feel this. You're just like looking around at your job and you're just like, is this me? Is this what I'm doing? man, I can't tell you how many times I've felt this, and I still feel it. I'm not telling you that it ever goes away, and that's kind of the difficult answer for this one, is that, I mean, you can scratch the itch, but then it comes back, and you're always looking for a new level and a new, I guess, a new plateau to get to. So you might call someone like this a malcontent, but really this person does just find it hard to sit still, and they always want to try new things. Now you've got to watch out for, if you're really adventurous and you're really like a risk-taking kind of person, you've got to watch out for being distracted, because once you pick what you want to do, getting distracted is going to dilute your attention. So this is kind of where I find myself in 2021, is I'm looking at all of the various things that I'm doing with my life, and I'm like, okay, something has to go. Something has to give. And I will talk about this a little bit more when I get to trait number 1. And they, these traits all kind of blend together in some ways. They overlap, obviously, but this is a pretty distinct thing. The adventurousness and risk-taking trait is pretty important, because it gives you the drive to try new things, and starting a business is trying a new thing. So how can you learn this or improve your risk-taking nature? Well, here are some thoughts. So go out and try some new food. Find somebody who's got, who knows how to cook ethnic food, or go to a restaurant. I love Indian food. I love, all kinds of Asian food. Every single kind of Asian food you can think of is all very good. I recently discovered spiciness as something that I just love. My wife bought me some hot sauces, and I was like, oh, okay, guess I'll try this. And I loved it. I freaking loved it, and now I can't get enough of it. So that really brought out the adventurousness in me, is trying some new food, but also new music and new movies. I mean, these are things that sort of improve your adventurousness, is trying some like media content and entertainment that you would not ordinarily go out and just look for yourself. Also good is meeting new people and travel. I mean, travel is huge. It really expands your mind. I intend to travel as much as I can afford to, before I die. And I'm not going to wait. I'm going to travel when I can afford it. And I'm going to make it a core part of our family's life, is that we go and travel and do new things and try new foods and go and meet new people. Obviously within reason. I'm not going to go broke to do this, but it just really gives you, it makes you more well-rounded, I guess. I mean, anybody who's traveled can obviously will tell you that this is true. Travel just broadens your mind so much. All right, so trait number 2 is adaptability and persistence. So this kind of goes with big picture thinking. So instead of looking at the challenges in front of you, you're thinking, 3 or 4 steps ahead, and you're looking for those obstacles that are going to throw you off and trying to adapt to those. So a person who's adaptable doesn't get discouraged when they can't figure something out. But they're also realistic about their situation, and they're realistic about their own knowledge and what they're capable of. So, I mean, there's a lot of people out there, and I've talked to, probably at this point, I've probably coached 50 to 70 people. And I like people that are very, go-getters, and they're like, okay, I'm going to achieve this, I'm going to achieve that. And I'm like, okay, well, that's part of the adventurousness trait, is saying that I want to conquer the world. I mean, lots of people they want to conquer the world, but they're just not capable of conquering the world. You've got to walk before you run, and it's hard for someone who is adventurous and the A-type personality. It's hard for them to adapt to their own limitations, and so sometimes they get really over their skis, and things don't work out, and they quit. So this adaptability trait, it almost pushes back against the adventurousness trait, in that, you know, you roll with the failures that you come across, and you're more of a realistic person, almost a pragmatist in a sense, where you're like, okay, this is where I want to be, but this is where I am right now. So in a way, a person needs to be fairly well-rounded in a sense, and not too much of an adventure seeker, because these adventure seekers, they're prone to quitting, and they're prone to getting distracted, and you don't need that. You need to be someone who is like, you know, at least capable of being realistic, or okay, and this is where partnerships come in. You need to have somebody around you who is adaptable and is realist and is able to bring you back down to earth. And this is where, you know, doing this kind of business with somebody else as a partner can be really, really valuable, because that person will be kind of a foil to whatever you are. They're going to push back against you, and, you know, if you're not adventurous, maybe they're adventurous, and, you know, I guess you do need a little bit of all three of these traits for everybody, but because you don't want someone who's really flaky as a partner. You also don't want somebody who's just not willing to take any risks at all. So another important part of adaptability and persistence is that these people own their failures. So you recognize when you've screwed up. You don't blame someone else for when things don't work out. So, for example, over the Christmas period, it was there was a lot of like shipping delays and stuff like that. Like, it was very hard to get a product out the door into the hands of the postal service so they could, and then when you did get it into the hands of the postal service, they were just taking forever. So a lot of people were blaming, you know, the suppliers, and they were just very angry. And I'm like, listen, we're experiencing the worst possible situation that is possible. There's COVID, there's, you know, weather. This is unprecedented. So you've got to have a little bit of grace for these suppliers. They're doing the best they can, obviously. Could they do better? Yes, but we'll figure out that when this is over, and we'll learn from our failures, and we'll adapt in our own business. You can't control what someone else does. You can only control your own actions. So one thing to watch out for with the adaptability is that some of these you might... Okay, no, I'm not going to say that one. I'll leave that one for trait number 1. So I couldn't really think of anything to watch out for, but you can learn this ability just by, you know, playing sports and playing games. Playing like card games and playing like multi-person games. You can really learn adaptability because you have to think strategy. And strategies change, of course, right? So playing like even video games can be useful because you need to adapt strategies, you need to figure out ways around things, and it does actually help your mind develop these sort of mental pathways that contribute to your skills in the real world. So let's get to trait number 1, and this is the most important trait. Not that it's the only trait that matters, but you need to have this for success. There's nothing that says you can't start a business without having a lot of this trait, but the success factors are, this trait is going to be very important. Now, the great thing about this is that this is something you can train. You can absolutely train this. You can get good at this. People often start and they don't have this trait, or it's very underdeveloped. This is one that you can and you must train in yourself. And that is focus, single-mindedness. So focus and single-mindedness. Now, this does contrast with trait number 3, I should say, in a fairly distinct way. So people who are adventurous and risk takers, they're often not single-minded people and not very focused. So this trait does contrast quite distinctly with trait number 3. And in fact, people often begin with trait number 3 and they start training themselves with the other 2 traits. And they start developing their muscles, in a sense, with these other traits. But there is a reason that this is the first trait, that I picked this as the most important one. And that is because without focus, without being determined, single-minded, you just cannot master anything. And you will quickly become discouraged, you will quickly quit, and you will not be able to master your business because you haven't focused on the business. You're trying to do too many things. Maybe you've got 2 or 3 businesses running at the same time. And this is something that I am personally working on right now, is the focus and single-mindedness. So this is as much for me as it is for anybody out there. And I've really had to come to this determination this year, is that there are some things that I'm probably going to end up putting aside. And even though they're fun, I enjoy them, it's just not, it doesn't fit into the rest of, my success measures. I really, in a real sense, I'm kind of remaking who I am. Ever since I knew I was going to quit my job and work from home, I've had to replace the old person, the old man that I was, and replace that old man with a new mindset. And the mindset is discipline, the mindset is focus, and the mindset is not, hey, let's go with what's fun, but let's go with what's successful. And, it also helps that I enjoy the things that I'm successful at. That's kind of important. If I didn't enjoy doing this, then obviously it's just, there's no point doing it. But I've learned to enjoy things that I didn't think I would enjoy before. And then, of course, I've got things going on in my life that are kind of distracting. And one of those things, of course, is the Army. So in 2018, I had this grand plan. I was like, all right, I think I want to get back into the Army. So I thought about it forever and thought about it. And finally, in 2019, I did it. And I don't regret doing that. But I've realized that, even if I have time for this, I don't have the mental space for it. It's taking up a lot of that mental space, and that's more important even than the time. So this is one thing that I've really, really learned this year. You might have time to do a lot of things, but doing a lot of things requires mental focus, and it's very difficult to divide your focus up into 7 or 8 different things. Most people can't do more than 2, maybe 3 things. So, for me, I've got the business, of course, and then I've got coaching, and then I've got the podcast. And then on top of that, I've got family time and, fitness and stuff like that. That's just part of my daily life. I don't really have to devote a lot of mental focus to that. But, all of that together, when you're switching between all of these little things, it is more difficult to maintain, focus and find the factors for success in any one thing. So I've realized that this will probably be my last year in the Army, and I've got one course coming up, so I'll probably be going on that course, and then I'm like, all right, well, that's probably it. And as much as I don't want to, I realize that there are paths in front of me that, I can do well. I can build this show, I can build the audience, I can start advertising, I can start getting guests on, but I can't do that if I'm distracted. All of these things require focus, so I need to be sitting down and thinking about this every day, to be focused on these things. And it's very difficult to do that if you're trying to do too many things at the same time. This is the one thing that all entrepreneurs eventually learn, that it's not time. Time, obviously you need time to do things, but focus is a much bigger factor than time, because focus creates success. Time doesn't create success. Focus does. So, of course, this has really nothing to do with motivation, although building motivation is important. So you need to be building your skills day by day, motivating yourself, getting up in the morning and repeating your goals and saying, okay, this is my 6-month goal, to have, 1,000 new listings on my Etsy store and 2,000 on my Amazon store. That's my 6-month goal. So write those goals down and pursue them with everything you've got. And you will train your focus. And the ability to say no is really important. So you might have people come to you and they're like, oh, hey, do you want to do this thing? Do you want to do that thing? Well, listen, you could say yes. You might look at your time. You might say, oh, I think I can do this on Saturdays, or I can find some time in my day. I'm not super crushed with things to do, but really, if you say yes to something else, then why couldn't you just spend more time and more focus on the things that are making you success now? That's more important than anything. You also need a little bit of just basically unbudgeted time every day. So, you just can't be always on. You can't be always doing something that's scheduled. And one of the things to watch out for with this is not taking a break when you need it. Taking a break and pausing and pulling yourself away is important for your focus, because you can only focus on something for so much time before you just sort of zone out. Now some people don't always work well with this. I'm the kind of person that I can drill in and spend about half an hour on any one thing, and then I need to pull back. And then I can take a break, walk around, and then I get more inspiration. Then I can come back and attack it again. So that's kind of how I operate, but other people, maybe you're the kind of person that, you can spend an hour, you can spend 2 hours doing one thing, and you can maintain that focus without really breaking your concentration. And, man, you got to tell me how you do that, because I'm not that person. So, that's it. So the traits are, of course, number 3, adventurousness and risk-taking. Number 2 is adaptability and persistence. The big picture thinking, roll with the failures, be realistic about your situation, and don't quit. And trait number 1 is focus and single-mindedness, the ability to say no to things that you should not be doing, not getting distracted, and just building on your skills day by day. It's not motivation, it's discipline. So I did have a runner-up for these traits, and that is being people-oriented. And of course, one of the things that is people-oriented is seeking wise advice and counsel, finding a mentor, somebody who is doing better than you, and who you want to duplicate their success. So that was a runner-up. I thought about throwing it in there, but I thought, well, I don't know if it fits into the theme of today's show, but it is an important trait, is seeking wise counsel. I don't know if it's a trait, really. It's just an action. But you need to be able to communicate with people and at least be able to learn from them. Well, that's it, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you listen on iTunes, I would be very appreciative if you would go and leave a review. I don't think this show has any reviews on iTunes. And if you found any success with this, then by all means, please leave me a review. Leave me a comment. I'd love to hear more about your success. Which one of these traits do you think that you need work on? Which one do you want to train the most in the next 6 months here? Tell me, let me know, and we'll see you next week on episode 99. All right, cheers.